Welcome to this presentation today. Actually, this is a series of presentation which I am making on clinical research. You may be remembering that the last week I covered the first part of my topic on planning of clinical research, where I discuss about the introduction and designing of the study and how you should go about the entire planning of clinical research. Today I am going to cover the second part of my talk on the planning of clinical research, in which I will cover the sample population, how you identify the participant for clinical trial, what are the possible errors, how to collect the data, how to measure various parameters which are required, and what are the types of biasness which can appear into the clinical trial. And finally, I will discuss something about the measurement and the statistical analysis which is normally carried out during clinical trial. The last part of my talk is actually on the reporting of clinical research. I may not be covering that part because itself is a very big topic that I will cover sometime later after my this talk is over. In today's discussion, I shall be covering the remaining topics in this presentation, that is the clinical research planning part 2. In today's presentation outline, I will discuss the topics under following 8 heads. Number 1, step in research planning. Second is the design of the study. Third, population selection and sampling. Fourth is the collection of data. Fifth is work plan. Then I will take the next topic as data management. The seventh one will be the interpretation of result, and the eighth and the last one will be the reporting. The next is step of scientific research. In fact, this slide I covered during my last presentation, but I would like to cover it again because some of the topics now what actually I am covering is given here, and this is a very important actually slide. So during the step of scientific research, we start first with the selection of area. Once you have selected a particular area to work, you have to select a topic on which you want to work. And then you go for your crude research questions, what you are looking for it. For that you have to go for very extensive latest literature review and check about the topic and question which you would like to do in your clinical research. If you get the answer about the study which you want to do, then there is no need to do that study.
However, if during your literature review you don't get the answer, then actually you refine your research question further, and after refining the question again go back to your literature review and check it whether what you are going to do is okay or not. After refining your research question, go for the development of research hypothesis, development of goals and objective for your study. Then develop all the necessary documents which are required to be submitted to the ethics committee for the approval. Once you get the written approval from the ethics committee, you further design your study. After starting the designing of the study, you look for the various population from where you will draw your sample for the particular study. Identify the various variables which you want to record during your clinical study as a primary variable as well as your secondary variable. And we know that during this variable there may be so many confounding factors which may be interfering with the collection of variable that you have to identify, and you must identify about the possibility of various bias which may come during your clinical study. Once you have done this, try to develop various research tools. I will tell you how you have to develop a research tool to collect the data and conduct the study. Preferably do a pilot study in very small number of participants to see the feasibility whether the study is possible. Are you going to do it smoothly or there are some issues may be appearing, so you can improve upon that. And once your pilot study is over and you are totally satisfied, prepare your entire work plan for the main study. During the main study, collect all the necessary data as per your protocol for that particular research. Once your entire data collection is over and you have completed the study in all the required number of participants, go for data management. Once the data management is completed, the next step is the interpretation of the result, whether particular hypothesis which you have thought is really true or there are lot of variation coming up. So interpretation of data from the data management is very important. And the final step is that once the data interpretation is over, you have to generate your final report. So the steps of scientific research which I am showing here are very important, and they are common for any type of clinical research or any type of clinical trial, and they are very important to understand and to follow for completing a successful clinical research. Number one is study design. It is a very important part of any clinical research. It is mainly divided into two types. One is descriptive study and other is the analytical study. Coming to descriptive study, it may be a case report where one or two case information is reported in the scientific journal, or it may be case series where large number of similar cases are reported, or it can be a cross-sectional study where group of population were studied for a particular clinical condition or intervention. And then the last one is ecological studies where the various effect of ecological factors may be studied. Now coming to the second, that is the analytical studies. Again it is divided into two major categories. One is observational study, which includes case control study and the cohort study. Cohort study is further divided into prospective, where you start the clinical trial from the beginning. The other one is retrospective, where already the data has been collected and it is available. You simply take out all those data and do the analysis. So there is a prospective study and then there is a retrospective study. The second type of analytical study includes what is known as experimental study, which includes randomized controlled clinical trial, which are mostly conducted during the development of phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trial. The next is randomized field trial. In a particular area, in a particular field is identified and the effect of particular intervention or the various confounding factors are evaluated. That is actually randomized field trial. And the third one is actually non-randomized clinical trial. So these are actually the trials comes under the various study design. The next question for best study design selection is that what are the various factors one should consider so that the study design is best to conduct a particular clinical study. It mainly includes 5 factors. Number 1, the purpose of your study. Second, the state of existing knowledge about a particular study which you are planning, or what is actually relationship of your study question. That depends, and design should be designed based on that particular question. The third thing is that the characteristics of variables. What are the various types of variables you would like to collect during your clinical study also influence your study design. The fourth one is the latency. Latency means the total duration of period which is required to do a clinical trial. So if it is a short clinical trial, the trial design will be different as compared to a clinical trial which is very, very long. And the last one, which is very, very important, is the possible feasibility of conducting a particular clinical research. So depending on these 5 factors, the study design has to be thought of or to be prepared. In this slide, let us see the purpose and types of the study. The study etiology can be ecological, cross-sectional, or it is a case control study, or it can be cohort study, or it can be an interventional study where we are using some drug or some procedure. The second type of study is the study of therapy, where you are looking and trying to find out the effect on a particular type of changes which is occurring in the lab experiment, or it can be a simply clinical trial where you are trying to find out the effect of particular drug, or it may be a community intervention. For example, today we are looking for a community intervention by asking the people to use a protective mask or social distancing, or in future we are going to use a COVID vaccine. That will come under the study type of community intervention. So these are the various purpose and types of study which are conducted during the clinical research. Second one is to properly understanding the existing knowledge in relation to study question, so that one can design a proper study related to the question which we are going to evaluate in clinical research. For example, suppose it is a new idea, better to do ecological or the cross-sectional study. If it is a new hypothesis, the better design is cross-sectional study or a case control study. The third one is that if it is a newly claimed association, better to do case control, replication, confirmation study, or a cohort or stranger evidence towards the causation. So if there is some claim, we have to reconfirm whether that claim is true or false. And the fourth one is actually already there is a confirmed association. In that condition, the experimental design will be just a experiment to be conducted, or we have to go for intervention with a particular drug or new therapy to prove the causation. So the existing knowledge is very important also to identify a study design and type of study which has to be planned. This particular slide, characterization of the study variables, is very important because that will direct about the type of study design which you are going to consider for your clinical research. Number one, if your study is related to very rare exposure of a condition, case control design is not suitable, since it looks for the exposure which is very difficult to record and it is not very much predictable. Secondly, you need a large number of participants to collect the data to complete your study. So case control design is not suitable for very rare exposure type of intervention. Second, if it is a very rare disease which you are going to study, cohort design is not suitable since it looks for outcome. And again, we are not sure about the outcome and how much time it will take. And again, the large number of participants are required to complete the study in very rare disease, because you may get only few number of the patient in a particular time. The third is the acute disease, where the disease is lasting for very, very short time. In this type of study, the prevalence studies are not suitable. So you cannot conduct a prevalence study in community or in a particular area where the study is requiring to control the effect and see for the acute disease, because disease is lasting for very short time and you may not get enough information to complete that study. The fourth one is there where the clinical trial is having high risk of exposure to the human subject, mostly like a very toxic anti-cancer drug. Here, the clinical trials are usually not very much ethical. The last one is that when the data is not available, then the record-based study are not possible or not suitable. You don't have any retrospective data, so it is very difficult to properly design a study. So characterization of your variables are also very important to help in you in designing which type of study you want to do for your clinical research. The fourth point in study design is latency. That means what will be the total duration of your study. For disease with very long latency, the cost of concurrent cohort study or clinical trial are very high, and it is very difficult to control because it will take very long time and lot of funding and patience is required to conduct the study. Here I will give the example of two study which comes under a very long latency period. One is Alzheimer's disease, where actually the early memory loss starts and then it takes a very long time for patient to develop a very characteristic Alzheimer's disease. So conducting a clinical trial in Alzheimer's disease again is very difficult because you have to conduct the study for 5 to 6 years to complete your data. The other example is rheumatoid arthritis. Again, rheumatoid arthritis is a very chronic disease. It starts with very small joint pain and joint swelling, and gradually there is actually swelling of the interpharyngeal joint, which takes very long time, and after 2 years, 3 years or 4 years, the patient develop a typical type of deformity. So again, rheumatoid arthritis, another a very difficult disease to conduct the clinical trial. And another very important issue comes that if you are using a particular drug for a disease which has to be treated for very long time, safety of that particular drug is also very important. As I am talking about rheumatoid arthritis, I would like to give an example that in case of rheumatoid arthritis, one of the drugs which is used is hydroxychloroquine, and it has to be used for 2 years, 3 years and 4 years. And when you are using hydroxychloroquine for very long time, one of the very important side effect which a patient can develop is retinal damage. So one has to regularly monitor the retinal examination to see the retinal damage during the treatment of hydroxychloroquine in rheumatoid arthritis because it will take very long time. So latency is one of the very important factor which may affect the study design or conduct of the study. Now in few next slides we will see about the disease population and the study population. The second topic of my this presentation is again very important, that is population and sampling of clinical trial participant. Sampling is the process of selection of member of study participant from defined disease population. So you have got a disease population in the society or in the country. From there you have to select a study population, those who are suitable for your particular study depending on various factors, mainly your inclusion and exclusion criteria. So selection of the study population from the disease population is also a very important step in clinical research planning. Now let us see the important processes which are involved in actually knowing the population and sampling the participant for a clinical research. The process of sampling, it involves number one, proper identification of a study population for the study, determination of the sample population, which participant you want to include into your clinical trial. Third is definition of the sampling participant, how actually you are going to define that if this is there, then only I will include the participant into my clinical trial. So you should have a very clear and well-defined criteria for including the patient into a clinical trial. Then you should have a correct choice of sampling method for your clinical trial. And the last, and which is very, very important, is that there must be a correct estimation of sample size. How many patients you would like to include into the clinical trial in each group? How many patients you are predicting that they will be dropouts? So the total number of participants which are required to be included in the clinical trial should be properly calculated in a study design, and for that the statistical person will be very helpful. So these are some of the important process which are involved in the sampling of the population in a clinical research. In population and sampling, the first factor is correct identification of the study population. The study or the target population is the one on which the result of study is generalized. So their selection is very, very important. And number two, it is crucial that the study population is very clearly defined, since it is the most important determination of sampling population. So very clear definition of the sample population has to be put in the clinical research document. As the selection of the sample participant is very important in any clinical trial, here I am just providing one example for a particular study how one can look for inclusion and exclusion criteria. The example here is, the title of a study is to evaluate the effect of new non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug in osteoarthritis. The clinical presentation of osteoarthritis as per the American Rheumatological Association is that there may be a pain in knee and or three of the following. Age of the subject should be more than 50 years. Morning stiffness of 30 minutes. There should be cryptus on active joint movement, bony tenderness, bony enlargement, no palpable warmth of the synovial. Here is the picture. You can see that there is a swelling in the knee joint. Coming to one of the very important diagnostic area which help in diagnosing patient with OA is actually X-ray of the knee. Here you can see the left side of the X-ray of the knee is normal, where actually the normal joint space is there and articular cartilage that is normal. The right side of the picture is X-ray from the patient who is suffering with osteoarthritis. You can see that there is a loss of cartilage, there is a bone spur, and the joint space is narrowing. So X-ray is one of the very important criteria for selecting the patient. So along with the clinical presentation, the X-ray and findings of joint are very important as a inclusion criteria. And then there are stage of the knee osteoarthritis which is also shown in this picture. So these are the inclusion criteria for this present study to see the effect of new non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug in osteoarthritis. Now coming to exclusion criteria, with our knowledge we know that non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are known to cause gastric irritation, so they should not be used in patients those who are having history of gastritis, peptic ulcer or duodenal ulcer. Secondly, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are also known to cause renal impairment, so patient with history of renal impairment or increase in serum creatinine or blood urea should also not be included. So the presence of the peptic ulcer or gastritis or renal impairment now becomes the exclusion criteria. So this way somebody has to define clearly inclusion and exclusion criteria in any clinical study. This is the example which I have given to explain how one should go ahead in planning of their clinical research. Fourth one is choice of sampling method. It is divided into two: non-probability sampling method and second is probability sampling method. First one is non-probability sampling method. Type of non-probability sampling method includes simple convenience sampling. Whenever somebody is coming, they are included into the trial, or a quota sampling. Group of people are available to participate in a clinical trial and they are included. This type of non-probability sampling is not recommended in good medical research. It is by far the most biased sampling procedure as it is not random. Not everyone in population has equal chance of being selected to participate in the study. So it is not a good choice to have a non-probability sampling system in good clinical research. Second is probability sampling. This is more popular and commonly used in clinical research. What are the type? Number one is simple random sampling. Second is systematic random sampling. The third is stratified random sampling, where you stratified the participant onto different group depending on their various factors like obesity or gender or smoking, non-smoking, like that. So you stratified them. The fourth one is the multi-stage random sampling, which normally we carry out in the clinical trial of oncology, where we do one after the other study so that the toxicity and other things can be properly identified. Then there is a cluster sampling. At different places, the people will be involved in a clinical trial. And the last one, that is sixth, is multi-phase sampling, where one after the other, actually, we go on including the patient into the sample. I'll go in much detail in the next slides. Simple random sampling. In this method, all the participants or elements have an equal probability of being selected. There are two major ways of conducting this type of simple random sampling. Number one, to consult a random number table. There is a random number table. From there you can prepare your random list. But the most common way of generating the simple random sampling is using a computer-based program to generate a random sample table. So these are the two methods: simple number table or using a computer program. Second is systematic random sampling. A systematic sample is conducted by randomly selecting a first case on a list of population and then proceeding to nth case until your sample is selected. This is particularly useful if your list of population is very, very long. For example, if your list of source is the phone book, it would be easiest to start at perhaps the 17th person on the list and then select every 50th person from that point of time to prepare a random list. Third, in stratified sample method, what we do that in a stratified sample, we sample either proportionately or equally to represent various strata or subpopulation. For example, if our strata were from the various states in the country, we would make sure that the sample from each selected states are included into the trial. If our strata were gender, we would like to sample both male and female. Or depending on your inclusion criteria, you can take smoker, non-smoker, obese or non-obese. For example, in this picture, we are selecting the sample from Uttar Pradesh and Telangana state from the country. And here we are taking male and female as our participant. This is very interesting slide showing the example how the multi-stage sampling is done. we start with country. For example, here I have taken country as India. Then you have to select two states. I have selected two states. One is Maharashtra, other is Telangana state. In the state we have to select the district. I have selected the district of Rangareddy district in Telangana, and in Maharashtra I have selected GMC Mumbai. Then coming to selection of the city, I have selected city of Hyderabad and city of Bombay. And then you have to select a household area from where the sample population will be included into the study. And lastly, from that household, the person, those who are actually participating in the clinical trial will be included. So this is actually the way the multi-stage sampling is conducted in a clinical research. Last is cluster sampling. In cluster sampling, we take random sample of strata and then survey every member of the group for the selectivity. For example, if our strata were individuals from a school in a city, we would randomly select a number of schools and then test all of the students within those schools to select them as our participant. Now this is the example of multi-phase sampling. We first identify the population in a particular hospital or clinic. Then, depending on our inclusion-exclusion criteria, we do a particular test to identify the samples, those who are fulfilling our criteria, and then we divide them into subsample depending on the various type of investigations and tests which is carried out. And this is the way actually we do multi-phase sampling. Fifth one is calculation of sample size. In clinical research, this is one of the very important aspect, because if you calculate less number of samples, your data will not be valid, or you may be unnecessarily collecting the sample which may not be required for the study. So sample size calculation is very important, and one can utilize the services of biostatistician to calculate the sample size for a particular study which you are planning. How many participants should be studied? That is also very important to know. The sample size depends on the following factors. One is the effect size, how much change you are expecting with a particular drug in a particular primary variable. Second is the variability of the measurement. Every measurement has got significant variability. Higher the variability, more number of sample will be required. Level of significance is very important. If the level of significance is very high, naturally you need a large number of sample. And the fourth one is the power of the study. So effect size, variability in the measurement, level of significance, power of the study, these are very important in calculation of correct sample size. The first factor in sample size calculation is the effect size. That is nothing but the magnitude of the difference to be detected in a clinical research. How much change you expect to show that your drug is effective. For example, if you are evaluating antihypertensive drug, how much fall in the diastolic blood pressure from baseline you want to be there to show that your drug is effective. If you are looking for the higher magnitude of the effect, naturally the sample size will be increased. So the large sample size is needed for detection of very minute difference in the effect. Thus, the sample size is inversely related to the effect size. If the effect size is coming down, the number of samples required will be more. The second important factor for sample size calculation is variability of the measurement which you are going to consider for your clinical trial. The variability of the measurement is reflected in the form of standard deviation or the variance. If the standard deviation of a particular parameter is high, naturally you will need large number of sample size to get a biostatistically significant value. So, the higher the standard deviation, large number of sample size is required. Thus, the sample size is directly related to the standard deviation of a primary variable which is considered in your clinical research. Level of significance depends on the type of various errors which occur in clinical trial, and that significantly affect the requirement of sample size. One type of error which is there in a clinical trial is known as alpha error or type 1 error. Normally the maximum level of the type 1 error or the alpha is kept 5% or also known as p less than 0.05. Alpha error can be minimized from 0.5 to 0.1 or even 0.001, but this consequently increases the sample size. Thus, the sample size is inversely related to the level of the error which is fixed. If you want to fix the error to 0.001, naturally the sample size will be very much increased. The power of a study also influences the sample size. The power of a study is probability that it will yield statistically significant result, and it is related to what is known as a beta error or type 2 error. The power is equal to 1 minus beta. Consequently, the power of study is increased by decreasing the beta error. Thus, the sample size is inversely related to level of beta error or directly related to power of the study. If you are decreasing the power of the study, naturally the number of samples required will also come down. Normally, in most of the clinical study, the power of study is usually kept at 80%.
Now, after discussing the study population and the study sample and designing of the study, now let us see about the data collection, measurement, various errors and the bias which occur during clinical research.
Now, in this part of talk, I will discuss about the collection of data, research tool, measurement and various errors occurring in clinical research and what are the various study bias. Data collection is one of the very important aspect of planning of clinical trial or clinical research. The data collected are nothing but the variables which are fixed as a primary or secondary variable in a clinical research. These variables are further classified according to their type. For example, type 1, also known as continuous or discrete variable. The other is known as ordinal or nominal variable. The second type is the role of the study, whether it is dependent study or an independent study. The third is relationship with other study factors. For main study variable, which is actually related to some other variables during the clinical trial. There are so many confounding variables which may play a role during clinical trial because the patient may be taking some other drugs or he is smoking or he is obese. So there are so many confounding variables which may affect your clinical trial and they will increase the bias. Then there are some effect modifiers. During the clinical trial, there are so many changes occurring during the study period. These all may also affect the output of the clinical trial. They are known as effect modifiers. And then there are some intermediate factors which also may play a role in the collection of the data. So one should be very careful in very precisely making necessary arrangement for collection of the data to avoid most of the variability which is coming in the clinical trial. Coming to methods of data collection, they are also known as research tool. The selection of suitable technique depends on number one, availability of information about that particular type of research tool or instrument, the type of data which is to be collected during clinical study, what are the resources which are available to collect that data or to make that research tool available for getting the information from the participant. And the fourth one is that characteristics of the tool, whether they are well standardized or they have got validated. Because the research tool which are used in clinical trial must be standardized and validated, otherwise the data may not be very fruitful. The commonly used research tool in various clinical research, most important technique which includes number one, using available information. You have got the records which is already collected in various hospital or clinic. You just analyze them and then you can use that. Then you have got the observation checklist. You have prepared a checklist, and when participant is coming, you are noting down and asking the various questions, and then you are entering your data. That is actually observation checklist research tool. Self-administered questionnaires. People have prepared some of the questionnaire and they ask the participant to use them and answer the question whatever they are given. Then in most of the clinical trials, which are usually epidemiological studies, the interview of an individual or group is done to find out a particular type of information. That is the fourth type of research tool. And then fifth one is measuring all the lab tests and other investigation. This is one of the most common and one of the most effective research tool which is useful in clinical trial. So measuring lab tests and doing investigation to collect your data is one of the best research tool as compared to using questionnaires or checklist. There are various formats which are available for preparing questionnaires and research tool to be utilized for various clinical research. They are mainly classified into two. One is actually fixed alternative, where the question is given and participant has to answer yes or no. Here it is very difficult to check the reliability of that answer and they are not very powerful tool. Other is open-ended, may not be properly answered and may be difficult to score. So usually one should avoid, because all these actually questionnaires are subjective. If it is possible, one should use an alternative method for evaluating a clinical research question by using an objective method. In some of the clinical trials or some particular type of situation, the clinical investigator may be forced to use an interview as a research tool. There are actually three types. One is unstructured. Interviewer bias is a serious problem. Data may not be hard to analyze. The second type is semi-structured. Follow-up questions are allowed. Probability best for the pilot study. And third thing is the structure, which is most commonly used and it is a good method. It is standardized and reduce the interview bias. So suppose you want to use a format for doing an interview, better to select a structured format as compared to unstructured or semi-structured. Remember rule of 9. Editing question, 9 mistakes must be avoided. What are that? First, avoid a leading question. Never prepare a leading question in your questionnaire. Avoid questions that invite the social disability bias. Avoid double-barreled question. Avoid very long question, so the individual will not read and will not be interested in reading completely and will try to enter. Avoid negation. Avoid irrelevant questions. Avoid poorly worded response option. Avoid very big words and technical words. And lastly, avoid ambiguous words and phrases. So these are the rule of 9 to actually avoid the mistake in preparing or editing your questions in clinical research. This is one of the most common problem in any clinical research. That is actually measurement error, and one should be very, very cautious, very, very careful, and possibly try to avoid as much as possible by various means and method. Definition of error: a false or mistaken result obtained in a study or an experiment. The type of error, one is the systemic error or bias. An error having a certain magnitude and direction repeated with every measurement. For example, you are recording a blood pressure, but that instrument is not properly validated and standardized, and there is a error. So with all BP recorded in all the patients will be wrong. So this is a systematic error. Random error is there, that error may not be fixed pattern. Sometime it is more, sometime it is less. This is very common in the actually value which is coming from the lab. Suppose you are doing some study in diabetes and recording the blood sugar levels or glycosylated hemoglobin. There may be error sometime occurring because of the individual who is actually doing the test will be different at different days, or the various reagent which is bought may not be uniform. So these type of error, they are known as a random error. Sometimes they occur or sometimes they won't occur. So these are the two main type of error, and one should be very careful to properly identify and try to avoid these errors. These are the three main source of error. First is participant. They may not be regularly following the instruction or the method which has been described to them during the clinical study, and then error will occur. Here I can give you an example that if you are doing a study with proton pump inhibitor, the proton pump inhibitor has to be taken in empty stomach, then only they are efficacious. If they are taken along with the food, the efficacy is very poor. If the patient is advised to take in empty stomach, but he is taking after taking food, definitely the error will come and you may not be able to demonstrate a very good activity. Another example is there that the fat soluble vitamins must be taken along with fat or milk. For example, vitamin D. Absorption of vitamin D is very good when actually it is taken with milk or fat. So that is another way actually the participant error may come. Second is observer. The person who is recording the data, he may be making some error in recording some data. One time he may be recording with one instrument or at one place, or there may be necessary to maintain a temperature to collect the sample and then transport. So he may be making an error in collecting the sample or storing the sample. So that will be the observer's error. And third is the instrument error. A particular instrument may be having some error and it may be giving a false reading. Hence it is mandatory that all the instruments, those who are used in any clinical research, at least every 6 months, they should be validated and standardized by a particular licensed people. You take ECG machine or you take BP apparatus or you can take some other instrument which are commonly used in recording the vital parameter, must be standardized every 6 months during the clinical study. Otherwise, lot of instrument error will come into a clinical research process. One should be very careful in any clinical research about the bias. These are a very common type of problem which may lead to wrong result, and ultimately there will be a problem as far as the interpretation of data is concerned. These bias actually can be divided into two major categories. One is that design bias. There is a biasness in actually designing a particular clinical research, like there may be a sample bias. For a particular clinical trial to complete and get a statistically significant data, you may be required to have X number of participants. But you are not completing that one, and only less number of patients you have completed and you are trying to analyze. So this is a sample bias. Then study selection bias. This is another very important thing, is that you should be very careful in standardizing your inclusion and exclusion criteria. If you have taken some patient, those who are actually not fulfilling a criteria into clinical trial, that bias will come and that will affect your result. And third is the response bias. Sometime in a particular individual, there may be response bias because of various reasons. Either there may be some other infection or genetic variability. So there may be response bias in an individual. That is actually maybe in case of design bias. The other type of bias which is very common is information bias or observer bias. This can be significantly reduced if the observer or investigator or the investigating team are very careful at every point of time during the collection of data. One is that the biasness because of interview. He may be asking one time one type of question, other time other. Measurement bias, intra and inter. The person who is recording daily the same parameter may be having some bias and different, or two individuals are recording two different type of data. So there may be intra or inter-observer biasness. Then reporting biasness. A particular data has come, but when it is reported, it was reported wrongly into the case record form. Recall bias. Then last one is the technical bias. There may be possibility that the particular technique has to be followed for determination of particular parameter in the lab. But the standard technique which actually is required may not be followed because of various reasons, or the poor quality of standards are used or reagents are used that may lead to this type of bias. So these are the important design and the information bias which may come in clinical trial and may lead to a poor data after the clinical research. Coming to design bias, the first is actually the bias which comes because of the selection. The selection bias is a distortion of the estimate of the effect resulting from manner in which the study population is selected. Just I gave the example of evaluation of osteoarthritis. So there is a selection criteria. There the morning stiffness should be of 30 minutes. There should be swelling of the knee joint, and X-ray findings should clearly show that there are the changes very much diagnostic to the osteoarthritis. If these things are not properly followed and some of the selection is taken in spite of some point those who are missing, this will become a selection bias. The second is, this is probably the most common type of bias in health research, and it occurs because of observational as well as analytical studies, including experiment. Very good example is there. You have to include the patient in diabetes trial where actually their post-lunch blood sugar should be more than 200. But because of the lab error, many of the time patient may be showing much higher blood sugar level as compared to what is existing. And these type of errors are very common because of poor analytical methods or poor validation. And these type of bias, they come in designing and will lead to wrong information on clinical research. Next is prevalence or incidence bias. The first type of bias can be introduced into case control study as a result of selective survival amongst the prevalent cases. These type of bias are very common in epidemiological studies. The second is actually the bias because of selecting the cases. For example, we are doing a study where actually the disease is lasting for very long time. There may be possible that the patient, they might have already exposed to particular disease at least 2 or 3 years before we are initiating the study. In that situation, the most of the mild cases already they might have improved or cured, or that severe cases during previous 2 to 3 years they might have already died, and we don't have the data and will miss the data of these patients, those who are mild and improved, and the severe cases, those who have died. So this is a typical example of a prevalence or incidence bias which can occur in cases of epidemiological studies. So one should be careful about these type of biases. Coming to admission rate bias, this type of bias is due to selective factor of admission to the hospital and occurs in hospital-based study. Very good example is there. We wanted to do a study in bronchial asthma. We should be careful to know that incidence of bronchial asthma and more number of patients, those who are reporting to bronchial asthma in hospital, is only in a particular season or in winter. We may not get enough number of the patient in summer. Similarly, coming to gastroenteritis, which is more common actually in the season when it is a rainy season and there is a lot of water contamination. So due to that, there may be actually different type of admission may be occurring because of seasonal variation. So this is admission rate wise. We may not get enough number of the patient admitted to the hospital in a particular time for our clinical trial. Similarly, the diseased individual who is in our clinical trial may get some other second disorder during clinical trial or a complication of original disease, and he may go to some other hospital for attending. So this is another reason the admission rate bias may come. And the third is that different rate of admitteds are reflected in bias estimate of relative risk. Because of relative risk, one individual patient may not like to go to a particular hospital. He will prefer to go to other hospital because of particular risk. For example, patient may not like to go to infectious disease hospital for a particular treatment because there is a high risk of increase in the infection. So these type of bias are there which may lead to what is known as admission rate bias, and one should be very careful in collecting and getting information on these. The next bias is non-response bias. This type of bias is due to the refusal of the participant in a study to follow a particular instruction and not following the instruction which is given. I just gave an example of using proton pump inhibitor in early morning, or they may be taking the drug which is not advisable to be taken along with the food or something like that. So that is actually non-response bias, which may be because the error of the participant of not following the instruction which is given by the research team. The second is that individual who do not participate are likely to be different from information who do participate. This information bias is a must be coupled with the respondent with regard to key to measurement error and outcome variable in order to misclassification of the relative degree of non-response according to one or more variable can occur because some people are basically not responding for a particular patient to participate in a clinical trial. Very common. He has to fulfill the specific anti-criteria evaluation. All the diagnostic don't respond should be positive. There may be possibility that because of misclassification, the participant may enter into clinical trial who is not there may be variation in the requirement from individual patient to individual patient actually measurement various reasons regarding which is done which may not be done properly. One of the very good example is that in case of technical person who is doing the patient may not be recording to the parameter they only in a correct manner. So due to that there may be cancer patient those who are actually HER2 negative they don't respond to Herceptin. So there may be individual variation in the response next which is very important is various measurement internal reasons or because of some genomic variation. That also bias may be responsible and it comes under the non-response those who are recording the various variables and parameters. There may be significant variation among them. A individual person when he is recording the various parameters at different time, he will be recording at different parameters. Or the two individual those who are recording the same parameter at different days, they may be recording different type of parameter of a clinical trial. So either the individual when he is recording, he is causing variation in recording of a particular parameter or the two individuals are recording in a different manner and putting the value those who are different. So there is a intra-observer variation occurring in the individual or between the two subjects that is known as the inter-observer variation. This is very common in most of the clinical trial. Participant bias we have already told because of various biological variation due to various genomic factors or not properly following the instruction which is given by the instruction or there may be some other reasons, internal reasons responsible which may be causing lot of variation in the subject response. So that is the participant response. And third is the technical method error variation because in clinical trial various techniques are used for recording various parameters starting from ECG, recording of X-ray, then doing lot of investigation in the lab. So there may be possibility that there may be bias occurring by a technical person when he is recording a particular parameter. So measurement bias may be because of observer's variation or from the participant or from the technical person who is doing a particular method. Recall bias, this is mostly because of misinformation or there must be some information from the media which the participant has understood and due to that this type of recall bias occur. It is an error of characterization may occur if information on the exposure variable is unknown or inaccurate. The recall by both cases and control may differ in both amount and accuracy. Cases are more likely to recall exposure, especially if there have been recent media exposure on potential cause of the disease. Example, in questioning mothers whose recent pregnancy has been ended in fetal death or malformation, and match group of mother whose pregnancy has ended normally, that is the control, it was found that 48% of the former but only 20% of the latter reported exposure to the drug. Another example is there is a lot of recall bias about the utility or effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine in corona infection. So these type of media actually information sometimes lead and patient realize that the whatever particular type of effect he is getting is only because of drug, which may not be true. Similarly, they have shown even some of the exposure related to some toxins and all those things have been reported by the patient as a recall bias.
Finally, after discussing the various types of error and bias, now let us go to the final part, that is actually work plan for clinical research.
After discussing the collection of data, looking for research tool and various errors and management, and finally various types of bias which can occur in clinical trial, now let us discuss the next part in clinical research planning, that is work plan. After bias, now let us see work plan. It is always better to mention in a very specific step in clinical research what exactly will be done. Coming to method, first there must be listing of all the activities related to the study, like activity to be done during planning, during implementation, and during the compilation of result. Number 2, identification of responsibility of each activity by every team individual member participating in a clinical research. Setting the time and date for achievement of each activity should also be mentioned. That is what is known as timeline mentioning in clinical trial. Fourth is putting all these elements together in a legible form, which could be a chart that is known as a PERT chart or in the form of table. And the last one is that budget and any funding agencies also has to be provided in a written manner, that how much amount will be required and who are the funding agency and for what purpose what amount will be utilized. So these are actually the work plan required for clinical research. Conducting of any clinical research or clinical trial in human subjects requires very specific procedures and elements. These include, number 1, recording of informed consent Number two, there should be clear instruction to each and everybody participating in clinical trial, whether the team member or the participant. There should be very good briefing about the entire clinical trial, what is going to happen, what is the drug, what are the possible side effects, and when everything will be conducted. And the last, which is very, very important, that the conduct of clinical research confidentiality has to be maintained, because this is mandatory, and approval of ethics committee has to be taken regarding each and every clinical research which is conducted on human being. Data management is one of the very, very important part of any clinical research, and it is very specialized type of activity. The data management is the whole process of dealing with data from the very beginning of the study, whereas the data analysis is just the last part of the study. When all the data is completed, then only the analysis is done. So there is a data management which starts from the beginning. At the end, actually there is a data analysis. It can be divided into following three phases. One is that the preparation of data entry form and data entry case record form. Second is data entry itself, and last is the data analysis. So data management is very important thing for final interpretation of any clinical research. Various activities which are carried out in data management, that includes the preparation of data entry form, review of all the questionnaire form, unique identifier, coding of the document, preparation of master sheet or manual or protocol or a spreadsheet to be used in computer. There are dummy tables for understanding by the team how to enter the data. Then there is a quality control and data entry date. Data analysis. The data is usually presented in various forms. For example, it may be in the tabular presentation showing frequency distribution table, cross tabulation, or it can be in graphical presentation like bar chart, pie chart, line graph or others. Or third, lastly, it is form of numerical presentation where there is a percentage and percentile, measurement of central tendency and measurement of dispersion. So these are the various methods by which actually data analysis is done and it is presented in clinical research. Data analysis. Analysis data of clinical research presented in various forms. Usually the researcher, for example, uses principle of biostatistics tabular presentation to test his hypothesis. Frequency distribution detection of proper statistical method depends or on it can number be one in graphical presentation the objective like of the study, bar chart, whether it is descriptive, line graph, looking for a difference, or third lastly it is an association. Numerical presentation. Number two, there is the type of variable and percentile, whether it is parametric, measurement of or central tendency, non-parametric, and number three, the distribution so of these the are variable. The various methods whether by which actually distribution of variables is done is normal, and it is presented binomial, in clinical research, Poisson or it is others. So depending on
Data
these
analysis,
types, actually the data is analyzed.
is usually presented in various forms. For example,
The most
it
difficult
may be in
part
the tabular presentation
of
showing
clinical
frequency
research
distribution
is
table,
interpretation of the
cross
data.
tabulation, or it
The
can
discussion
be
of
in
the
graphical
results
presentation
in a
like
way
bar
that
chart,
relates
pie chart,
data
line
obtained in
graph,
each other,
or others,
clarifying
or third last
the
list is
association
form of
and other
numerical
findings are
presentation where there
very,
is a
very important
percentage and
for
percentile,
a correct
measurement
interpretation.
of central tendency and measurement of dispersion. So these are the various methods
The
by which actually
seventh comes
data analysis is
the
done
reporting,
and it is presented
which
in
is
clinical
actually the
research.
final step of any clinical
Data
research
analysis,
or clinical trial.
The data
So
is
after
usually
the
presented
study is
in
completed,
various forms.
all the data
For
is
example,
collected,
it may be
all
in
the
the
data
tabular
is analyzed
presentation
properly,
showing
biostatistics
frequency
has been
distribution table,
completed, and
cross
after the
tabulation,
interpretation, the
or it
final
can be
report is
in graphical
prepared
presentation like
for the
bar
submission
chart,
to the
pie
sponsor
chart, line graph,
or to the
or others,
regulatory authority
or third
for
last
the
list
publication.
form of
So
numerical
this is a final
presentation where
step.
there is a
Itself is
percentage
a
and
very long
percentile,
chapter.
measurement of
So
central
I will not
tendency
be covering
and
the part of
measurement of
reporting
dispersion.
in
So
the
these are the
present
various
discussion.
methods by
I will
which
take a
actually
separate
data analysis is done
presentation
and it is presented
exclusively
in
on
clinical research.
reporting of clinical research because it is
Data
a
analysis,
very, very important
the data
and
is
very
usually
long
presented
chapter
in
to
various
do that.
forms. For example, it may be in the tabular presentation showing frequency distribution table,